Okay, now let's get more on the passing of Vusamazulu Credo Mutwa with traditional healer Gogo Aubrey Matshiqi. Gogo Aubrey, good morning, and thank you very much for your time. How do you react to the news of the passing of Credo Mutwa? Let's start there.
I think the first thing I must say is that Ubaba Credo Mutwa was not a traditional healer. He was a healer. I am not a traditional healer, I'm a healer. We are not traditional healers, we are healers. Because the question we must ask is, traditional as opposed to what? And from whose judgment? So I beg of everyone to refer to him and to refer to us as healers. I was not surprised when I heard the news. I have been waiting for the news for months because in my own spirit, Ubaba was no longer with us. Let me explain. I had been sensing him as a spirit that was shuttling between here, the land of the so-called living, and the land of the ancestors, in preparation for his journey. And therefore, this is a moment I have been waiting for some months now. It is a moment that fills me with both joy and sadness. I am joyful, I am filled with joy because he passes on to join Abadala, to join Amatonga, to join his ancestors and the ancestors of this country at a time when the country was beginning to remember his greatness. Because for decades, for a long time, the country had forgotten about his greatness and therefore had forgotten about the greatness Yabadala, those who were guiding him, those who were guiding the messages he was sharing with us, with the country and with the world. You will also remember that at the end of the year, the country remembered him by refurbishing, rebuilding, renovating his house because his living conditions had become quite, in my view, scandalous for a man of his stature, for a healer of his stature. So I am filled with joy that he leaves us to join Abadala at a time when we were beginning to remember who he is, who he was. We were beginning to remember his messages. I am also filled with joy because he passes on in the middle of this virus, in the middle of this plague, COVID-19, on the eve of a lockdown for the country, which means the lockdown is a moment, is an opportunity for reflection, for meditation, for prayer, a moment during which we must remember him and remember what was said to us through him by Abadala about our state of being, about the state of the world, and what we should do about it.
Okay.
But it is a moment of sadness because we have lost a great healer.
I saw an article this morning. As soon as we got the news, I went on Google to see what people have written about him recently. Jay Naidu, 2 years ago, described him as a national treasure, and he said Baba Mutwa was a baobab.
He was bigger. His roots were deeper than those of a baobab. Baba Mutwa, when I talk about the sadness I feel, is that for too long over the past few decades was an elephant that was invisible to the world. And when I say I am joyful, it's because the world in the past few months started opening its eyes and started seeing this elephant. Yes, he was a baobab, but it is a baobab that had become invisible. So Jay Naidu is correct. This is a healer that the world must celebrate.
How do we, sorry, Gogo Aubrey, just from the time perspective, I want to cut in there. How then, under the circumstances of a lockdown, how do you anticipate should be the considerations for laying his body to rest? How do you do a funeral of such a national treasure at this time, with all the restrictions we're facing?
It is not my place then to prescribe how that should happen, as young as I am as a healer. I think it should be left to those healers who are older than me to decide what should happen. What I will be doing, and I hope the family, the country, and other healers will be doing the same, is to pray for guidance from God, from Abadala. Pray for a message that will tell us what is the most dignified way in which we can lay him to rest. The greatest honor we can give him is to remember his message, is to remember his messages, and to reflect on these messages during this lockdown and commit ourselves to live by them, to reconnect with our essence, that is the spiritual, to reconnect with the divine, to reconnect with the spirits of our ancestors, to commit ourselves to be better and do better.
Thank you very much. Gogo Aubrey Matshiqi there.